There's a lot of work being done. Today is an example of the work that's being done to make sure that Kenya and other countries within Africa are ready for this big business that we want to do. I think a lot of it at this point in time, what we're looking at is information. Information about what are the specific opportunities for intra-Africa business, but also what are the challenges and hindrances that businesses would have to overcome. So if you think about, like for us as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, for us we're looking at it and saying we have experience in doing policy and legislative advocacy in Kenya to our government to ensure that we have a conducive business environment. What does that mean for the rest of Africa? What does that mean when we are speaking on behalf of Kenyan businesses with regards to the African environment? So we are really unpacking it and getting to understand how we are best going to be able to open up conversations, to open up platforms, to open up opportunities that are the ones that are going to use good industry.
Right. Right. We're also saying buy Africa, build Africa. But the challenge on the ground, we're seeing individual countries moving towards promoting the individual productions. In Rwanda, we have made in Rwanda. In Kenya today, we're hearing of made in Kenya. Aren't you worried that this is actually going to promote the spirit of protectionism?
To recognize that Africa, as in terms of African countries getting access to their neighbors' products, we know that our trade routes have been designed towards going to the West and towards other continents. So the fact that that individual countries are coming up with their national brands is not necessarily going to be a disadvantage. If when I go to any supermarket or any store, I am looking for an African product. I'm not looking for a Kenyan product because I'm Kenyan, but I want to see something that says made in Africa, and I'm going to buy it whether it's Ghanaian, whether it's from Rwanda, whichever country it's from. And so it's a good thing to the extent that, one, it helps us to start to have an understanding of who we are and what our areas of expertise or comparative advantage are. Countries that will invest in branding as countries will also invest in looking inwards to see what is their comparative advantage. And this will actually help us. If we look at it that we are supporting Africa, supporting the countries within Africa, it will actually be helpful for us. But it depends on the attitude that we take, saying that we want to support African products on the shelves. We can do that as a market. We're a big enough market. We're 1.3 billion people on this continent. There's already sufficient financing to be able to support African businesses.
Right, sufficient financing. But on the other hand, there's also been a challenge of the fact that most of our products are actually raw materials. We are exporting a lot of raw materials only for it to come back and be sold back to African countries at very exorbitant prices. There's been talk of the need to actually add value to our products. But what kind of steps need to really be taken to be able to actualize this?
So we've been talking about industrialization for years. The fact that we are buying chocolates in our Kenyan supermarkets that have been made in Ghana, but that are grown in Ghana, but are branded international companies, that's a problem. But it takes industrialization. It takes the countries that have that advantage, that are already producing those goods. For Kenya, it's going to be tea, it's going to be coffee, to sit down and say, how can we finish the rest of the stages of production, to be able to ensure that our products are going out as finished products. Looking at it and saying, what is the cost? Even if for now the purchase of those machines is expensive, we recognize that the long-term profits that will be made are worth investing it now. So looking at investing in new technologies, also being able to leapfrog, because other countries had to go through long phases of new technology, but we have a chance to leapfrog with technology. We have a chance to leapfrog with our very educated young population. So we can look at those as opportunities that will ensure that we have a growing market, but also growing returns on our investments.
Right. Talk to me a bit about the cost of transport as far as air is concerned, as much as how it is of a challenge, and sort of how can such forums of like the ones that we are having right now be of importance to unlocking the potential of manufacturers and producers as far as air transport is concerned?
Because air cargo and also air passenger travel is still quite expensive. We say that there are destinations that are 5-7 hours across the continents that are much cheaper than going to other countries within Africa. So recognizing that, we have been talking for years about an open skies policy. We really must make that a reality. An open skies policy will ensure that even as we're talking about an exchange of trade, there will be a need for transport. There will be a need also for, if we're talking about trade in services, there will be a need for people to move from one country to another. That investment must be made, and made now. But then also we have to think about other forms of communication. If you think about telecommunications, it's also going to be an important one for us to consider. What is the cost of making a call within Africa? What is the cost of access to to the internet across the various African countries, and how can we bring that down? Because that is the platform upon which businesses will build to be able to have this inter-African trade that we're talking about.
Right, but the business people do not have the time, the luxury of waiting for these conversations to happen. What is already happening
Some
on
of
the
this
ground?
has to happen bilaterally. Some of this requires companies in Kenya to go across the border, to go to different countries to negotiate. Our role as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance is really to be able to work with businesses, and what we've done is to really try and build business-to-business relationships, working with business member organizations or apex bodies in other African countries to be able to say, we are Kenyan businesses, this is what we are producing, how can we partner with you? And really that connection between individual businesses is what will also enable us to lead, so that by the time the policies and governance are coming, we will actually be a step ahead.
Right. Talking of leading, finally, the politicians did their role in Kigali in March to sign actually the Continental Free Trade Agreement. I want to read your thoughts on what the private sector is doing to take leadership in actualizing this agreement.
Okay. So in terms of actualizing this agreement, especially if I talk about our experience as Kenya, Kenya was the first country to ratify. That's a great plus. Partly is because we've managed to express to our president and to others around that this is going to be an important opportunity for us as Kenyan business. We are also looking at how we can deepen our engagement in the various regions, because Kenya currently actually is the chair of the East Africa Business Council. From the private sector community, how can we leverage on the opportunities that are available to us? So what we are also going to be working on is being able to work on the transport systems and logistics systems in partnership with other businesses in other regions, to be able to then speak back to our governments and say, these are the challenges that you need to remove, these are the blockages that we find when we're trying to do business with each other. So private sector is the one that can lead this process, and we believe that we are well poised to do so.